Welcome to SUSD Spotlight, your go-to source for all things happening within the district. Whether it's celebrating student and staff achievements, delving into trending education topics, or highlighting inspiring human interest stories, we've got you covered. Join us as we illuminate the incredible endeavors taking place in our schools and forge connections within our community. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and engaged as we embark on this journey together, spotlighting the extraordinary in SUSD. Welcome back to another edition of SUSD Spotlight. This is the first edition of the 25-26 school year, and today we are excited to have in studio with us Shawnee Baca, the new principal of Cheyenne Traditional. Welcome, Shawnee.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we're really interested in hearing a little bit about your educational journey. So what is your background experience and what brought you to Cheyenne?
Absolutely. So my background started when I was a child. I grew up with a brother that had autism. And so I learned from a young age that children learn differently, and I was around a lot of different children growing up, and so I always knew that I wanted to work with children. And ironically, I thought first I was going to be a doctor, and I thought, why not be a pediatrician? And so gave that some thought, but then thought that I just couldn't stand the thought of doing an IV on a child incorrectly and having me be the person they remember that hurt them, even though you're trying to help them. And so I enjoyed my time serving in Sunday school and with children. And so I thought, well, when children think about who they remember most, it's typically their parents, and then they think of a teacher. And so in order to be an influential person in someone's life, then I chose teaching as a career path. So went in that direction and joined the public education system in 2008, did my student teaching, and absolutely loved it. Thought I was going to stay at that school. And during that time in education, the budget cuts eliminated positions within a district school. So I found myself truly looking for any open teaching position at that point. And that brought me to teaching kindergarten at one of the first traditional charter schools in the state of Arizona. And fell in love with what traditional education is and what it can provide students and the master teachers that I was able to learn from, and spent 10 years teaching there. 4 years in kindergarten, 6 years teaching first grade. And as I was there and realized once I moved grade levels that it wasn't necessarily the teaching that I was married to, but it was education in general and wanting to be able to produce something that I was able to produce in a community in my classroom, but on a greater scale on a campus level. And so I started pursuing my degree in educational administration, and sat on that degree for a little while because I was young and I thought that a decade of experience was a sufficient enough time in the classroom, in the trenches, to be able to mentor teachers that I knew, may have more experience than me at some point. And when I knew that, and I felt the push that it was ready to, be in an administrative position, I knew that my resume needed something. And at the time, I was at a Spalding accredited school. And Spalding had opened a position for a tutoring director and a curriculum specialist, and that was something I had become very passionate about through traditional education. So I did join Spalding's team for a year in curriculum and developed an in-person and online tutoring center, actually right in the midst of COVID. That happened within the year that I was there. And that 1 year of office-type administrative experience on my resume gave me just what I needed to be able to jump into an administrative role in the charter world with another traditional network as the assistant principal for 2 years and principal for 3, and absolutely love it.
So much experience in your background with traditional learning. For those who may not understand what exactly that is and how it's different from another neighborhood elementary school, what does traditional learning mean?
Absolutely. So traditional learning is structured to be back to basic, teacher directed. All students are facing forward. Any new content that is learned is coming from the teacher. The teacher is honored and respected as the expert in the classroom. Every concept is modeled first. I do, we do, you do. And so there are a lot of the same teaching practices that happen within a traditional classroom. The structure of the classroom is oftentimes just different than what one might see. So seeing all kindergarten students facing forward isn't always what you see typically when you walk into a kindergarten classroom, but that is how traditional classrooms are structured. making sure that, the curriculum is sequential and the teachers are aligned in those expectations. It's very typical to see uniforms, school uniforms at a traditional school. The professionalism, you hear the phrase to dress for the job you want, not the job that you have. And that really is, part of the principle is that we're teaching the students to step forward with their best foot in a professional way very early on, and to teach them that the principles that are so important in their education. There's a hyper focus on English language arts and math instruction solely. So when master schedules are completed, those are the topics and the areas that are structured first, and everything else falls into place. Just because there is a hyper focus on ELA and math does not mean that traditional education does not care about the whole child. That's a very important component. It is not just about academics, although academics are the priority and very, very important in traditional schools. It's about growing the student and respecting the student for their age, and growing the whole child in their development.
Well, Cheyenne is a highly sought after K-8 school. You've been there now for a couple months as the leader this year. Talk about that K-8 dynamic too in this traditional setting, and how does that sort of change maybe the face of it versus your elementary experience?
Absolutely. So it was great to stay involved in the traditional world as a teacher by coaching athletics through for 5th through 8th grade students. And that has helped in this position too in a K-8 setting, and actually preschool through 8. We do have a preschool at Cheyenne too, which is amazing. But really, coming to Cheyenne and unifying the elementary and middle school has been a focus of mine and a focus of our staff, and really coming back together on the principles that we were founded upon, and what matter most to us, which is producing early readers, eloquent speakers, and preparing students for the volume of work that is required at times to achieve at a very high level and to be successful in middle school, and then ultimately to go on hopefully to our SUSD Desert Mountain, and then beyond. And truly what we find is that when we prepare them, and although it is difficult to keep up with the volume of work, the high expectations of Cheyenne, is those that have gone through the program will return and say, high school was a breeze, and students were able to really enjoy their high school experience because academics was not a struggle of theirs. They had the academics on lock. They had the study skills down, so that they could really continue to be involved in athletics, in clubs, and really develop their character through the process. And then on, ultimately our goal is to make sure that if they desire to do so, that they do move on to universities, colleges, trade schools, and to ultimately come back and impact our community in a positive way.
I think Cheyenne's getting close to celebrating 30 years of serving the community. And I believe you have some fundamental cornerstones that are part of that experience. And when you were talking about the students coming back and sharing how well prepared they were, you also have students that come back and teach at Cheyenne, right?
Yes.
So maybe talk a little bit about that culture and climate and that feel that causes people to not only be prepared for the next level of education, but also want to come back and be part of continuing the tradition.
Absolutely. People will always remember the way that you make them feel, and people will gravitate to that, where they feel respected, loved, valued, and cared for. And I think that that's huge. And the fact that we do have 2 middle school teachers that were Cheyenne students and have come back and taught for years now at Cheyenne. And then just most recently, we have a new 3rd grade teacher who went through Cheyenne's program. So she is back at Cheyenne as well. And I hope that continues. I hope that cycle continues. The 2 middle school teachers, some of their colleagues were their teachers. That's how, our teachers love it there, and they stay there. And it has become a family, which is great.
Well, and Dr. Menzel, you were talking about the culture and the climate, and the parents are a big component of that too.
Yes.
When I think of Cheyenne, I think of community and very engaged families.
Absolutely. Teachers are their child's first, parents are their child's first teacher, always. And so parents in a traditional setting, and especially at Cheyenne, understand that, and that's how Cheyenne began almost 30 years ago, was founded upon those 9 cornerstones that those parents wanted. They wanted a back to basics option within Scottsdale Unified School District so that they could send their children there, be confident, and be involved in the process. And to be academically successful, they do have to be involved in the drill and practice.
And it is a school of choice. So, folks can enroll from anywhere, and yet it really has that community feel. It's in a neighborhood. I know it draws from the neighborhood, certainly, but it really does feel like a neighborhood school, too. How do you strike that balance when, of course, you're welcoming folks from wherever?
Yes. It's something that has been done well because we do maintain wait lists at many grade levels. And so, yes, we do draw from the neighborhood. We have several families that are, from right next door or that walk to school. When I drive in, I can see families, walking. And in my time when I was setting up my office over the summer, I would, see a family walking by and throwing a ball back over the fence. And I would, hey, are you a Cheyenne family? And they were,
cool.
So they're walking by or playing sand volleyball on the courts. And so it is still a community school, but obviously when something is good and something is right, word spreads and people want to be a part of that, and that is what has spread. And so we do have families that come from all over and travel. I myself travel about 30 minutes to get to Cheyenne, and it's worth it. It's worth the drive, and I have teachers that travel far to get there as well. So to foster that, again, it's just making it a place where people want to be, and that's from the students all the way to the staff.
What has been the biggest surprise or new learning for you as you become part of our SUSD family?
That's a great question. I think I am surprised at the level of support that Cheyenne has received, because I know that Cheyenne is a different model of learning within SUSD. And so in my head, I was thinking, well, sometimes we do things a bit differently because we are traditional. But I'm very, very surprised at the level of trust that I have been given, and to lead the school, and support and trust in the knowledge that I bring to the table.
And so as you think about where you are now and where you envision Cheyenne will be in the next 3 to 5 years, what are the things on the horizon that might get people excited about looking at Cheyenne as an option for their children?
Absolutely. I think really maintaining excellence and really we are super excited about the multi-tiered system of support process for academics and behavior that we are implementing, so that everyone knows that every child deserves a chance at traditional education. So I think the most exciting thing for me is seeing the buy-in of the teachers and seeing the dedication to not only upholding high standards and teaching to a very high level, but also making sure that every child that's at Cheyenne has the chance to achieve that, even if it needs a little bit of extra assistance and help and support.
That's great. At the end of every podcast, I like to ask our guests if there's a particular teacher or a person who inspired you to go into the field of education. I'd like to give you an opportunity to give a shout out to that person who might have made a difference in your life and put you on the path that you're currently on.
Absolutely. I think for me, I would say it was 5th grade Mrs. Baum. And to be honest with you, this goes back to people remembering the way that you feel. Because if you asked me anything that I learned in that classroom, I couldn't tell you. But I do remember that was a highly sought after classroom. I was very excited that I was placed in that classroom because of what I knew about it from the student community, and students wanted to be in there. And so that is my desire, and that is what has kept me going, is wanting students to be at school, because learning doesn't always come easy, but loving kids can come easy.
That's a really powerful testimony. Thank you so much, Shawnee, for being our guest today. We're so excited to launch another season of SUSD Spotlight. We're glad that you tuned in.
And of course, we hope that you enjoyed this episode and will pitch us ideas for future episodes. You can do so on our website, susd.org/spotlight.